Hello, and welcome back to another episode of 33 Conversations, the podcast where we talk to founders about the mission they're on and doing it in the world that we live in today, and just having a deep conversation, connective, and understanding the human side of building something meaningful in the world. And we've got another great one for today, guys. I'm just really honored to have my guest today, Noah Wilson Rich, Ph.D. Welcome, welcome, welcome.
Hey, everybody. Hi, Michael. So excited to be here. Thank you for holding the space.
You know what? It is about space, right? It's just about like the space and creating it and seeing what happens. So I love this platform. It's starting to evolve and just the different ways that we can talk about our mission. And today is going to be really cool because we're going to talk about when the mission evolves. So normally I start out and I'm asking you, well, first share a little bit about you and how's life going for you right now and all the crap that's happening. You shared earlier that you just had a big move and how are you feeling with heading into 2026?
Yeah, we're here. We made it. We're still standing. It's a wild journey. Well, hey, thank you for welcoming me. I like your choice of words. You said evolve. So for me, I'm an evolutionary biologist by training. I have a Ph.D. in biology with a focus in bees and wasps and social organisms. That's how I got into it. I wanted to understand what more we could understand about our human selves in the context of these spaces that we hold, like here with 33 Conversations. It's not only about what's around us, but how do we interact with it? How do we design it intentionally? And how do we respond to it? Whether it's the very basics of biology, from air and water and light, to the more modern forces that are thrown at us with this information of everyday life in 2026 that we have not evolved to deal with in terms of the capacity of information. It's almost a software upgrade that's needed for humanity to be able to live in this context, in this space. And this is why we feel so anxious all the time and maybe depressed or maybe disconnected. But I think the antithesis of this is connection. It is coming together. It's having these conversations. So if some of us feel like we have a dim light one day, collectively, we make that brighter. We amplify one another. And that's the way through. That's the beauty of living in a social context. That's what fascinates me.
It fascinates me too. And then having everything resetting itself all of the time. And, you can't count on this has been a theme that's been happening is, we sort of trained to, this is it, and this is how it is going to go, kind of writing the book without ever even leaving room for anything to change in it, or experience anything in it. It's that old survival way we used to look at life. So I know that you've got that context, but of everything evolving for you, what was your mission at the beginning and how did that change, which we're talking about in a little bit, but what are you in the middle of right now? Where is your mission even evolving now? Because it's ever present, right?
Studying evolution, one of the big lessons is that change doesn't strive for perfection. Evolution is pretty random. You could be the best and then a piano falls on your head and your species is extinct. It's that's just how nature goes. And I think in that, it allows us the space to say, well, I'm going to do my best. And there are forces outside of my control. And if I can do something about it, let's do it. And if not, I'm going to have, that bottle of wine that I was waiting to open, or I'm going to kick back with the sparkling water and just try to find some respite. And so for me, I am working at a career pivot where I'm able to use my training as a scientist and understanding how to measure our actions. What's the impact of everything we do? Who's listening to our conversation now in the 33 Conversation sphere? And how will that impact them? What can we measure about that to know that we're on the right path? so that if we take an action and it has an unintended consequence, that we can look at the measurements or the data to see, there are unintended things happening here that we don't feel like aligns with our intent, our purpose, our values, our vision of the future that we're working to create. So the measurements part, it's something I have a lot of fun with now in my consulting life. So where I work with companies doing environmental consulting, I think about what industries are not doing the best or they don't have the best reputation with their environmental impact. And how can I get a seat at the table to have a discussion with them, to listen to what they're working on and advise them on ways to include measurements so that we can set goals and say, okay, we want to reduce water usage, increase biodiversity, look at our carbon impact, and say that's where we want to go, and then to set a path forward and to help them along the way. So that's what I do now as an environmental consultant, by including my values and my vision with measurements and just listening. One of my favorite colleagues, Renee Gervais, says, God gave us 2 ears and 1 mouth, so we need to listen twice as much as we speak. And I'm able to do that now much better as a consultant, and I just love this work.
When you say measurements, so what does that look like in real life for them? Like, what type of measurements, and contextually, how does that play a role? Like, what is the data that you're looking at, or how do you get that back to them that makes sense to them?
It's fascinating. So I started my journey in entrepreneurship when I was a student. I grew up outside of New York City. My mom was a single teacher with a couple kids, doing her own single parent thing. Shout out to all the single parents out there. I'm like, right. God, God bless you guys. It's so hard. And so growing up with limited resources and going to graduate school in a laboratory that never received a grant, my training is very much on how to do things without money. And so I started a company while I was a student, and that was doing urban beekeeping. And it's a shout out to the Best Bees company, still going strong there. I ran that for 15 years. And with that company, we started to look at sustainability in companies, corporate social responsibility through pollinator programs, so installing and managing beehives. And that started in 2010. As a scientist, I collected data from the beehives to see how to save the bees, how to improve bee health. And then we started to see data coming out from the literature, the scientific papers, showing that sometimes when you put too many beehives out in an area, that could have unintended consequences. So for companies and people who were saying, oh, save the bees, let's get a beehive. And really, as the scientific understanding was up until 2018, that was really the thing to do, manually get some bees. We started to see that those bees can compete for resources and take food from other bees. Anytime we do an intervention here in the ecosystem, maybe in the business world, maybe in your life with our relationships, our relationship to ourselves, there's impacts. And we want to make sure that we're going in the right direction. So we would measure bee health. Scientists were measuring the health of other species. And it made me do a career pivot to look beyond just American beekeeping, but to global biodiversity. This whole mission shift based on information I was getting along the way, where now we can measure how many species are in an area. We can use really cool technology for acoustic AI sensors to listen to bird songs and tell you how many species are there, or to get a text message to say, come on outside, look at this species of bird that you've never seen. We can now do this with bees, with crickets. There's so many ways we can engage with nature and make sure that for the environmental efforts, it's having the best outcome that we want. For example, to increase biodiversity by a given percent.
That's incredible. That I want to talk more about the bee thing went off in my head, and it's like, man, how are the bees doing now? Like, do you still keep up with the bees? Because there was all of that the world's going to die because there's no bees, and like, are they still here? What happened to them?
Yeah, no, it's crazy. Bees are dying more than ever, right?
They are still?
They absolutely are, especially when we think about the main species, honeybees, that we've been using for research. When we look at the health of American beehives, way more bees are dying now than are surviving every year in America. 3 years ago, we passed the 50% threshold of annual death of beehives, and now we're seeing 2 out of every 3 beehives not making it through the year. What that means is when we don't have as many pollinators, we don't have as much food. and the price of food goes up. And that's just thinking about the human perspective. What about the plants that humans don't directly rely upon, but take in carbon and they breathe out oxygen? So plants give us air to breathe. Pollinators like bees promote plants. So anybody who eats or breathes needs bees. It certainly relates to the economy. So it's a big problem. And what our research has found is that areas with good bee health have a lot of native plant biodiversity. So with my new company, as I've made this pivot to the biodiversity lab, that's what we're called, we're able to work with anybody around the world to think, let's look at your property and how could we use this better? Can we do a native plant pollinator garden? Can we look at native monarch butterflies and add tags to track them? So the impact goes beyond just your site, but to the community level. That's the exciting work we're now doing with a bit of a pivot.
God, okay, so when I never connected the dots till right then when you said, so the problem, everybody just blurts out the problem, here it is, but you never hear anything in the ecos about solutions. And so
and everybody
this
wants
is good to know.
Yeah, it's really beautiful when the solution is simple. So I always joke with people that out of my whole career, Ph.D. and, founder of these organizations, my tombstone is going to say, here lies Noah, plant a flower. P.S. Make it native. It's exhausting because the message is so simple, right? But anybody can plant a flower, whether it's kids in a school classroom walking along the street and throwing some native seeds, adults, older people, we all come together around this. And the solution of promoting native plants really does make an impact on improving bee health.
Do we have, how does someone know native plants near them? I mean, besides, Googling it and stuff, but is that just sort of natural that that's in our environment? I don't really think about it because most people go get their plants at Home Depot or something like that.
Yeah, exactly.
They don't think about it.
Consult your community. We've come together. And so, for example, I know that you've had some wonderful ideas about how to bring community together. For example, movie theater settings, how we can facilitate dialogues. Yeah. When we consult our community and ask people, what is a native plant? What are some local recipes? What are some fruits and vegetables that thrive in this habitat? Where are the berry patches that I can go pick? Remember that from our childhood growing up?
Yes.
You can just eat wild berries.
That was some
knowledge that we need to stay connected to. So yeah, you can go to Home Depot or Lowe's or any place, but certainly any local people at a local garden center, let's say, will know that local knowledge and make those local recommendations about, organic, locally sourced plants.
Yeah, it's just about getting more conscious. When I was growing up, I grew up in the country, and my grandma would take us down, and I have distinct memories of, blackberries were huge, although they hurt trying to get them. But I definitely loved them. And then her thing was she would love to go down to our property, and there were springs there, and she would make this, she would pull sassafras and make sassafras tea with it and tell us how good that was for our system. And I mean, I distinctly remember all of these moments, but as a kid, I didn't know any difference. I thought that that's just the way that it is. But now that we're having this conversation, I'm becoming aware of I live a couple blocks from the Missouri Botanical Gardens. They always have things like that, and a couple of other nurseries around here that have really amazing. You just got to seek it out. You got to bring awareness to it, which is what we're doing today, which is so cool.
Yeah, it's also about honoring and acknowledging our elders and listening to what their experiences were like as kids, and then in return, having our elders understand what's that experience like for kids today. Are the kids in your area of Missouri where you grew up coming into contact with these berries to get hurt to taste and experience? Are they not? And to wonder, what is that like for them? And are they missing out? And can we fix it? Because it's just a hypothesis. Maybe that's important for the development of people to live in the context of nature. We do know from research that biophilia is the name of the concept for how humans feel better when connected to nature. We're seeing all sorts of data. I just presented at my recent talk at TEDx Boston in November at MIT, looking at how offices that are looking out at nature, that results in 15 fewer sick days per year and over 30% more productivity and creativity from workers that have offices exposed to nature. So this matters and it's measurable. And that's when we start to make a business case to help scale these ideas beyond just the individual, but to an institutional system level of global scale.
Yeah. I yes, the community event, it's teaching me so much about myself because, this is not my wheelhouse, but I've committed to doing it anyway. It's, I totally underestimated the, because I'm a big thinker, visionary. I see it, I go for it. I don't really think about anything in the middle of it. And so, but the reality is people are so checked out. And then we have this 2-week period in the holidays where they just ultra check out, really kills your momentum for building momentum for something. But it forced me inward and understanding about, it's not about the number, it's about who does say yes. And I was like, if it's 10 people, it's 10 people, it's amazing. So once I shifted, I allowed what was so to be there. And then now people are coming and it's growing. Probably going to have about 50 to 75 people, but that's a win for me. And it's a win for our community because I'm doing something different that's not been done before. But, with everything that is happening, I see the reflections back, with all of the chaos, let's call it chaos. But then how people are responding to it. And there was a conversation yesterday that happened on one of the little news thingies that was a priest, and he was talking about what we need to do is talk to each other and get to know each other and understand each other in a different way. And he's like, I don't know how that's going to happen. Like, I know how that's going to happen. It's people. It's us. It's innate. And just a couple of flashes today, I saw where people were wanting that. So it's like, that's, you're about nature feeding back information to us and our environment feeding back information to us. I see it in real time, even though it's so easy to get tricked by the drama of all of it and see what the energy and the current is, because it's all nature, no matter what we're doing. But where do you think that gets flipped in our perception that we think something's wrong instead of something's evolving? Where do you think that comes from?
Yeah, I love that. When you're thinking about change as a constant, as it's just sharing, even one of my favorite authors, Octavia Butler, said change is God. That's the only thing we can rely on. And so from an evolutionary perspective, when we think about the systems in which we live, when you're feeling like something's not working, and maybe like in my experience, having to shift my mission, from bees to biodiversity, in a way here where and I'd love for you actually to share a little bit more about what you're working on for those maybe who haven't heard about it yet. But when you're thinking about a big idea, anybody, and then you think about the context of the systems we live in, maybe that's a government system and laws, maybe that's business. If it's an idea, how do you reach a marketplace that already exists? Sometimes we just have to work within an existing system in order to get traction and scale. What I'm hearing from you is from the past couple of weeks over the holidays, people were checked out. What I would say is, well, where do they check into? Maybe they're not in this one part of a system, but people are there. Everybody's doing something. And so as you've started to get some more growth with your idea, I think it's really important to understand that that's also a model. Your community in St. Louis is a model that other cities are ready to scale from there. Yeah. So yes, these things take time, but they're all within different systems. And so I think it's important for a person to question and ask themselves, what assumption am I making about this system that maybe is not proving to be true? And from a scientific perspective, it's a hypothesis to test. My training as a scientist showed me, our job is to reveal the underlying truth in a situation. That's what science means to me. And sometimes that truth means your idea ain't that good, right? Your approach sucks. That's how I started my company, was off of an idea that I had during the pandemic at the beginning of the year. And I had kind of let it go and just didn't make it happen. That's how I started the year. I was like, I'm going to make that happen. And I was 2 months into it when I realized, oh my God, this totally sucks. This offer totally sucks. It's not at all what I'm in alignment. Yeah, and it requires being open to, some people call it the universe, or, some people could say to the measurements. What are those signals that are telling me that something is working or is not working, and requires change to adapt in order to make the vision I see a reality? Did you want to share anything more about the project you've been talking about?
It's in a really great space. There was definitely some things that cleared that I was unaware of that was operating. So a lot of us grew up. My dad passed a couple of years ago, and I didn't know till the very end that he was a narcissist, and the effect that had on me. And I've spent my whole but I wouldn't be who I was without it. It's what gave me the drive to learn and to understand and fix it. But I realized there's really nothing wrong after he passed. And I'm like, keep going, everything works and blah blah blah. But during this time, whenever I called my team around me, people that are supporting me in just supporting me so that I can be who I'm going to be in front of that room and for the community, I was sharing my ideas and some videos that I made, and they were watching it, giving me feedback, measurements. And one of my really dear friends, she's like, "Michael, you're begging," and I'm like, "No," and I didn't even get it out of my mouth. I knew she was right, and because that's how I did. That's how you get things from a narcissist is you beg, and you learn to do it really, really well, and it covers up so much stuff. And it becomes an automatic. You can't even see it. I did have the sense that there was like an octopus on my face and I couldn't get it off, and I wanted the truth so bad, and I was really seeking it. And she gave it to me, and boy, oh boy, that when they were checked out, I was checked out too with that. But I needed that to be resolved so that I can clear it and move forward, because it's not at all what I'm committed to doing. I know the universe does not respond to begging except for give you more situations to beg for. But it's like a huge weight that lifted off. And as soon as that clicked, I was able to see the wording better. I was able to it just all started to click and flow. It gave me new strength for the new year to create rituals in my life versus doing things the context shifted. And it just made a huge, huge, huge impact. And I just got really clear that, I was really grateful for that. And then as soon as that switched, people started calling that hadn't called before, reach out from people. I had a huge aha about the podcast. A guy reached out. He's like, this episode with this guy was really life-changing for me. I'm like, thank you. And he's like, I'm a agent. I represent people that I get them on podcasts. He's like, can I send them over? And I was like, sure. So I start reading him, and I'm like, God, these people are next level caliber folks. And he reached out and wanted to talk to me. We talked, and I said, why are you having them on my podcast? This is to me, I'm just doing it. I'm not really paying attention to the outside. He's like, Michael, your podcast is in the top 10. You're ranked top 10 globally. And I had no idea. And he's in Portugal. Yeah. So I didn't know.
That's the beauty of scale and serving as a model, even for yourself, even a one-on-one conversation that's being recorded here. We think not only how is it directly impacting listeners, but what is it inspiring them to do? And then using those as measurements for impact. It's interesting to hear your experiences. There's so much emotion there, and it makes me think and picture waves and the choppiness just of dealing with your narcissistic father and having to figure out how to interact with that, with the ups and downs of how you're feeling and being triggered. And, my training personally as a scientist helps inform my approach to uncertainty and emotions in a way that's not perfect. I'm human. Yeah. Lord knows that, I've got plenty of my own situations, but I do try to approach it, and at least with business and consulting, from a scientific perspective, meaning I try to have hypotheses out here, for if you find yourself in need of something and your approach is begging, right? That would be a method, right? Your hypothesis, how do I get this? And then when you go through that scientific method of saying, how do I test this to see if this approach will work? This will get me what I need. You know, you go through, okay, that didn't work. That didn't work. That informs you. Do I keep trying it? It didn't work before, and I felt this way. Here was the outcome, you know, discussing the results there, so to speak. It just allows you to create your own system. And that's something to help people find their own power. So often we feel powerless, or there's a saying, you know, don't let people take your power away. So to create our own processes and systems internally that are steps to help us understand when we've tried something and when it's failed, how to measure the impacts and outcomes of our actions on our pathway to making the vision we want for ourselves and the broader world become a reality. The scientific method can give us that, and it's free and time tested worldwide.
Yeah. It's triggering another aha that I had on the podcast, another podcast earlier, was that about power asking and thinking of it as an experiment, which is what you're saying too. And that's why I call it the 314 experiment. It's because of the area code, and this is an experiment. But see, I was saying that, but like that really wasn't how that was living or landing for people because of the structure that's so ingrained in me. And it's going to be there, but it doesn't mean I have to operate from it anymore. It means I can become aware of an experiment with it. And that's what I'm doing. And I am connecting with people now, and I'm really excited about it. And some do, some don't. It's tough to because I do little video messages, and so you pour your heart and soul into that, and people don't even give you a heart back or acknowledge you in any way. And I'm like, damn, that stings. Ugh, But at the end of the day, or just keep going, I'm like, that has nothing to do with me. I was clear when I was communicating that, and I'm still clear about it. I have no idea what people are going through because I haven't had the feedback yet. And one day I will or I won't. But you're right. It's about allowing the information and just sort of aligning with that being more and more present in my life, that's how I operate from that, because that's what's happening now, is I'm measuring and I have names and I check off things, and instead of it just being willy-nilly. And I find every day I get more and more excited about what I'm creating, what's next, and as it's evolving, that there's a whole other world that I've never even knew was there before. And it's all in relationships.
Other people get that too. Enthusiasm is so infectious, and we actually learn that too from bees. There's so much that we can learn from leadership within beehives and other social systems.
That's my next question. That's my next question. What can we learn from the bees?
There you go. Yeah, I mean, honeybees have been around for 100 million years. Okay, so the challenges that we face every day, humans have been around for tens of thousands of years, right? We think, oh, nobody's faced this, I'm all alone. Yeah, you're not that special, because nature has seen this all the time and continues to do so. And so when we think about enthusiasm, and you think, you know what, you're sitting here with an amazing podcast, vulnerable conversations, you're putting things out in the universe, staying productive, and people respond to that, because as we see with the beehive and how honeybees communicate with their dance language. Have you heard of this? The waggle dance? It's amazing.
No.
So this is Nobel Prize winning research in the 1970s from Carl von Frisch with the waggle dance communication language of bees. And the way that, honeybees live in the dark, they live in a beehive, and yet they fly for miles and they tell one another where to go to find the best flowers. They say, oh, this new flower patch just bloomed. It's so juicy. You got to go. And so they need to communicate with the other bees about where to go. Take a left, take a right. How far do I fly? How good is the quality of the nectar? And when they do that, they dance. And in the dance, there's information encoded while the bees are shaking their butt and they're moving in a figure eight and they're buzzing their wings. And the more enthusiastic that dance, the more attention the message gets from her sisters. Bees are female-dominated societies, so male bees don't do any of this. If you see a bee at a flower, say, hey, girl, because that's a female pollinating. So we know enthusiasm goes a long way with spreading a message from nature, because when they're talking enthusiastically, others respond. And that's something you're doing here too. And I'll share, when I started the Best Beast Company as a student, with no money and a social media page and a dream, I was very enthusiastic in saying, I'm trying to figure it out. I don't know exactly what I'm doing, but I want to get more pollinators out there and I want to raise money for research. When I was giving up to 8 talks a week, people would say to me, how are you doing this? Is this a fake it till you make it scenario of building a business or getting an idea out there? And I would say, no, it's actually vulnerability as strength. In sharing with people that I'm doing my best and we're in this journey together, it builds trust. And that's how I was able to build this company that's in a couple dozen cities, multi-million-dollar venture. I was able now to have a CEO succession plan in and now start the next venture in a very also vulnerable, enthusiastic way that I know taps into what others are feeling in this moment in time. How do I make a difference when the systems that exist in the world might not be doing it without me? It's a new world order that's shaping, and we all have our power, and we have languages and systems within us, like I mentioned, the scientific method or the power of connection and vulnerability that can help us be a part of the new world as we want to design it, rather than sitting out and feeling left out and disconnected and allowing our dimming light to turn off.
Yeah. There's one little piece in there that I was missing for me, and it was that I got feedback that it occurred for people that I had it all figured out, because I was not disclosing that I'm figuring it out too. They didn't get that in my communication, and without that, there's no connection. And that's the part that was
it's not relatable,
not relatable at all. But even though that's what was happening, it just wasn't coming out. It's like I think I'm saying X, but that's not what's landing over here, because I was too busy trying to figure out the next thing to stop and go read the data. That's basically what I was not doing, is stopping and reading, checking in and reading the data that was in front of me, because that's what was causing me to spiral out and not land things.
Yeah, and the data can
things.
be, let's say, you have an audience, you want to check in with them. How did it go? Give them a scale or something, and then set a goal to be like, I want this measure to be a little bit better. Okay, my audience gave me a 9 out of 10. I really wanted a 10 out of 10. Let's get some feedback so I know how to match the measurements with my feelings, with my own personal assessment, with my emotions, in order to make a game plan for what's next. How does that feed an action? Asking folks, what was your take-home message? If you had to say in a sentence what this podcast covered, it would be very interesting to read from the audience compared to what your intention was for this talk. So those measurements help guide it, and I think the power of vulnerability and productivity when combined allows us to keep it moving. So if we say something goofy, or like my recent TEDx talk, there were a couple things I forgot to say, and I was really upset about it afterwards. And I thought, man, what can I do? Let's do another talk. Keep going. Get it right next time, because we got to stay productive. So that's an antidote. I would say productivity is one against vulnerability. If we make a mistake, if we're embarrassed, if we fumble, it's okay. We're trying. And I think trying is a way to stay connected and get that feedback. So that's what I wish for everybody. We have that power. Nobody can stop us from trying. Even if they don't appreciate it, recognize it, we keep going for ourselves.
What would you say to somebody that has been trying to, they know they need to pivot or switch or change or evolve in some way, but something is holding them back, or they know their mission is evolving? It's this bottom line thing. What got you here cannot get you there. I know that. But embodying that sometimes can be when do you let go? When do you...
Yeah, absolutely. Listen, one of my executive coaches, Marshall Goldsmith, wrote a book of that title, What Got You Here Won't Get You There. So there's your textbook reading for folks who want to read up a little bit more on this. But I do want to loop listeners back around to one of the topics we started on today in our conversation, Michael, which was systems. I see you. I see people who are going through this frustration of not feeling heard, not feeling understood. Maybe it's an idea at work. Maybe it's something that's best for your family. Maybe it's just something for yourself that you are not able to just make happen. I get it. Lord knows I've been there. I'm there every day. What's important to understand are what are the systems that I'm fighting? What are the systems I'm trying to blend in with? And how are those not serving me? And the information you get there can be find a different system, right? If your friends, your relationship are not giving you the feedback that you are intending to receive, then you might need to start thinking, maybe this system, this friendship, this relationship, this behavior that I'm doing, it's not working. And sometimes you need to burn it down, not literally, but you need to restart. Yeah. And failure is opportunity. When we see natural disasters from our bee research, whether it's wildfires or hurricanes, we see which plants bounce back soonest. Isn't that amazing when there's a wildfire and plants can still start growing from the ashes there? It's incredible. With our own lives,
or a tree growing out of the side of a rock.
To recognize.
Like
oh my God. Yeah. The apartment building in Manhattan where my parents started dating has a tree growing out of the roof, out of the cement. I mean, so this is what I'm saying, lessons from nature. It's inspiration. Take a walk in nature to reconnect with your own thoughts and think, what are the systems I'm trying to fit in with? And it's not working. Acknowledge that and think, what do I do? Can I change the system? Run for office or, do something else, maybe take a leading role in the family, whatever you might need to do, have conversations with people, or do I need to work within a different system that might require creating your own? For example, for me with building my own companies, once I realized one company was no longer meeting my needs and, maybe vice versa too, I said, well, let me just create a new one and do it in a way that is going to fit this new vision that I have and this mission shift. Anybody can do this, but it takes a lot of introspection. And honestly, walking in nature helps. I promise.
It so does. The weather's been here in the 50s and 60s, so I've been able to walk. Oh, I love it. So there's a park 2 blocks from here, and me and little Bobo just take off and go, and it's just I love it. Yes, I'm there with you, the nature, and that was on my meditation this morning. Was if you forget just that. The disconnection that you can always go and put your feet on the earth and the earth will love you. That was his message today. And I was like,
I love
so
that.
True.
That's beautiful.
Yeah. It's beautiful.
And universal. Just like a lot of the problems that any of us face, these are universal. We all can relate to some degree. And that's why we need to come together and vulnerably share what we're going through to stay open to the feedback so we have a measure to see, is this real or not? And where do I want to be in terms of what I'm hearing?
Yeah. Beautiful conversation today. Thank you so much for your wisdom, your Ph.D.ness. I love that. I love data. But you kind of wrap it all in a really deliverable way that I think it'll really land well. So I appreciate you and what you're doing and the bees and all of it. They'll bounce back. They're not going anywhere. They figured it out for 100 million years. They'll figure it out. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we're all mirroring each other. And it's they get to start over too. Mm-hmm. Maybe this could be, maybe they're ready to evolve their beehives.
There are a lot of technologies that are now available, and it's really fun. So I want to just encourage anybody to reach out to me, biodiversitylab.com, or find us on social media. I love talking to people, and it's really going to take all of us to come together and be well, both for the planet and for ourselves and business and systems. So thank you for the
I'll put all of your information. It's great talking to you, too. I will put your information in everything that travels with wherever these pods go and live. But just again, thank you so much for your light and your information and just a beautiful conversation. I appreciate it.
Thanks for the podcast. It's an honor.
You're welcome. You're welcome. You guys listening, I know this was a really good one today, so I really appreciate it. And go out and have an amazing conversation with somebody that you've never met. Create a relationship that wasn't there before and connect. Connect to yourself, to others, and to the earth. Have a great day, and we're going to see you on the next one. Bye, guys.
Beautiful. Bye. Thank you.